As you know that today we are starting our first chapter of food preservation. As you know that this food preservation, it is one of the skill subject, and under this food preservation, as I already shared the syllabus with you, I hope you have gone through the syllabus. So as per the syllabus, the first unit is related with the food preservation and what are the factors that affect the growth of microorganisms. There are two terms, one is the food preservation and another one is the food processing. Dear students, so today we start with food preservation. I am Dr. Tahira Siddiq, concerned teacher of your subject food preservation from Home Science Department. So dear students, first we see what is food preservation. Food preservation means we preserve the food for longer period of time in order to prevent the growth of microorganisms. Isn't it? Means, as you know that in food there are different types of microorganisms that are present in the food, and when their growth occurs they spoil the food. So we preserve the food in such a way in order to prevent that growth and in order to preserve the food for longer period of time. ठीक है? So हम फूड को ऐसे प्रिजर्व करते हैं so that we improve its shelf life, and in another way we can say that we prevent the growth of microorganisms. Dear students, you already know that there are several microorganisms that are present inside the food, like bacteria, yeast, fungi, or other microorganisms. So when their growth occurs, they spoil the food. So it is our responsibility to prevent this growth in order to preserve the food for a longer period of time. Isn't? Or you can say we can slow the oxidation of fats that cause rancidity. As you know that in fats there are some microorganisms present which cause rancidity. वो फूड को रैंसिड हो जाते हैं, वो रैंसिड करते हैं, स्पॉइल करते हैं फैट को. तो वो रैंसिडिटी किससे होती है? जब ऑक्सीडेशन ऑफ फैट्स हो जाते हैं. ठीक है. और the another definition of food preservation is it also includes processes that inhibit visual deterioration, such as the enzymatic browning reaction in apples after they are cut during food preparation. So food preservation में वो भी आ जाता है, when you cut the apple, it turns into the brown. Why? Because enzymatic browning action takes place. There are some enzymes that are present in the apple. So when that enzyme gets intact with the oxygen in the atmosphere, it gets reaction and which turns the apple into brown or brinjal or a banana. So in order to prevent all these changes, we preserve the food in such a way in order to prevent this reaction, in order to prevent the spoilage and to improve its shelf life. That is food preservation. ठीक है. So food preservation, हम it is such a process. We preserve the food under such a way in order to prevent the growth of microorganisms and prevent the spoilage of food or improve the shelf life. This is the definition of food preservation. I hope you understood this. Now, what are the objectives of food preservation? जो food preservation है, अगर हम ये करते, इसका क्या मकसद है? It prevents undesirable changes in the food items. Undesirable changes like enzymatic browning, जैसे एप्पल, ब्रिंजल, बनाना. अब आगे देखेंगे कि कैसे हम उस चेंज को प्रिवेंट करेंगे. Improve the nutritive value and sensory quality of food. ठीक है. बिकॉज जो न्यूट्रिटिव वैल्यू एंड सेंसरी क्वालिटी जो होती है फूड की, इट गेट्स डिट्योरेट व्हेन द फूड गेट्स प्रोसेस्ड or when the foods gets packed from manufacturer to the distribution level. As you know that the food passes different levels, different phases in from land to the customer. ठीक है, जब आप फूड को लैंड से निकालते हैं वहां तक इंसान तक पहुंचने के लिए इसको डिफरेंट फेजेस पास करने. सो ड्यूरिंग दैट phases sensory quality or nutritive value gets deteriorated. So food preservation is such a process. We enhance this. It increases the shelf life of food items like milk. When you pasteurize the milk, you can store the milk for 2 or 3 days. But without pasteurization, milk gets spoiled within a day. So you increase the shelf life. Ensure its supply during scarcity and natural drought. As you know that nowadays, today, packed foods are available which are not growing here, which are not seasonal foods. So as per the food preservation technique, every item of the food which is not seasonal is available throughout the year. ठीक है, जैसे आज विंटर आएगा, विंटर में ऐसे कुछ फूड आइटम्स नहीं है जो यहाँ पे अवेलेबल नहीं होते, but due to fruit preservation technique they are available during the winter, during or during another season. Lengthening a lag phase of bacterial growth, it means it improves the growth of it increases the growth of bacterial growth. For example, if bacteria will grow in a milk within a day, but due to food preservation its growth gets delays, maybe with 2 or 3 days. It delayed undesired autolysis, minimize pest and physical damage in the food, and it prevent microbial action. ठीक है, so this is the aim of the food preservation. Why we are doing food preservation with the food? So these are the objectives these are the objectives of food preservation. So that is why food preservation is very important nowadays, because it improves the shelf life, it improves the nutritive value, it prevents the growth of microorganisms, it delays the growth of microorganisms, it improves the sensory quality of the food. ठीक है, and this food preservation, it reduces the wastage of the food, it ensures food supply during a natural calamity or during um, any type of the season. ठीक है, it prevents the oxidation of the fatty acid, and it prevents other reactions like enzymatic browning reactions that occurs in the food. So it prevents all these changes, and it improves the shelf life of the food. That is why food preservation is very important nowadays. ठीक है, now the next term is the food processing. What is food processing? It could be defined as the process of transforming food items into usable food. So this is food processing. So food preservation and food processing are different, but their objectives are same. Food processing, food preservation, जैसे मैंने आपको कहा, it preserves the food for short, longer period of the time. Food processing होता है, it transforms food items into usable form. फॉर एक टेक एग्जाम्पल, आप जैसे फॉर्म ये फूड जो है वो आप प्लांट से निकाल, क्या आप वैसे ही कंज्यूम करते? नो, उसकी पहले वॉशिंग हो जाती है, फिर उसकी सेपरेशन हो जाती है, उसके बाद उसकी पैकिंग हो जाती है, ठीक है, उसके बाद वो मार्केट में आ जाता है, तब जाके हम वो परचेज करते हैं, फिर उसको हम घर में साफ करते हैं, फिर उसके बाद प्रिपेयर करते हैं. सो फ्रॉम लैंड टू द माउथ, दैट इज फूड प्रोसेसिंग. ठीक है, it might include the processing of raw material through various chemical and physical processes into food, isn't? So जो भी food में physical और chemical processes हो जाते हैं from farm to the customer, उसको हम कहते हैं food processing. In food processing, different activities are involved like cooking, mincing, canning, pickling, emulsification and liquefaction. So through food processing you make the food edible. आप फूड को eatable बनाते हैं through food processing. But food preservation से आप food की shelf life को increase करते हैं. That is the difference between food processing and food preservation. ठीक है? Now the next is factors affecting bacterial growth. As you know that there are different microorganisms like bacteria, virus, yeast, fungi. So they need different items like human beings need food from which we get different nutrients in order to for physiological processes. So same is the case with the microorganisms. So there are some factors that affect their growth. Okay. First is, as you know, growth of bacteria is affected by many factors such as nutrition concentration or other environmental factors. So there are some factors that affect the growth of bacterial growth. One is the nutrition concentration, another one is the temperature, gaseous concentration, pH. pH means hydrogen ion concentration, ions and salt concentration and available water. ठीक है. So nutrition concentration क्या होता है? As you know that the bacteria, they grow faster when the wait. If culture media is rich in growth promoting substance, growth of bacteria occurs faster. Decreasing nutrient concentration decreases the growth rate. So जिस फूड में nutrients dense होगा उसमें bacterial growth faster होगी. जो nutrient dense ज़्यादा नहीं होगा उसमें bacterial growth delay हो जाती है. So different bacteria को जो है they need different nutritional requirement. ठीक है. सो जितनी इंक्रीज हो जाएगी कंसंट्रेशन न्यूट्रिएंट कंसंट्रेशन में ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ बैक्टीरिया वाइस वर्सा राइज हो जाएगी. तो न्यूट्रिएंट कंसंट्रेशन जितना लो होगा ग्रोथ ऑफ बैक्टीरिया वैसे ही लो होगा. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज द टेम्परेचर. इट मींस कि जितना न्यूट्रिएंट डेंस फूड होगा बैक्टीरियल ग्रोथ राइज हो जाएगी. अगर न्यूट्रिएंट डेंस लेस होगा तो बैक्टीरियल ग्रोथ स्लो डाउन हो जाएगी. Temperature. Temperature also affects the growth of bacteria. The lowest temperature that allows the growth is called minimum temperature और जो maximum highest temperature है for growth of bacteria is known as the maximum temperature. ठीक है. There is no growth below minimum and above maximum temperature. It means डिफरेंट माइक्रो आपको उतना डेप्थ में नहीं जाना है कि कौन सा माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म किस टेम्परेचर पे ग्रो हो जाता है. आपको सिर्फ इतना रखना है कि टेम्परेचर जो है जो मैक्सिमम और मिनिमम टेम्परेचर है डिफरेंट माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स के लिए ना वो मिनिमम टेम्परेचर से बिलो जाएंगे ना वो मैक्सिमम टेम्परेचर से अबव ग्रो हो जाएंगे. ठीक है. pH hydrogen ion concentration it affects the ionic properties of bacterial cells, so directly affects the growth of bacteria. ठीक है. As you know that most of the bacteria they grow at neutral pH. ठीक है. 6 to 7. And there are certain bacteria that grows best at acidic, that is pH 7. ठीक है. So कुछ bacteria most of the bacteria जो है वो grow हो जाते हैं at neutral pH, but there are some bacteria that grow at acidic pH. ठीक है. Next is ion and salt concentration. As you know that all bacteria they need metal ions like potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc in order to synthesize enzymes and proteins. ठीक है. But there are most bacteria that do not require sodium chloride, so they can tolerate very low concentration of salt. ठीक है. So gaseous, there is some halophilic bacteria like archaeobacteria that needs higher concentration of salt. ठीक है. So availability of the water. As you know that in all types of the food water is present. ठीक है. And this water it is the most important factor for bacterial growth. So available water in the culture media determines the rate of metabolic and physiological activities of bacteria. जैसे sugar, salt and other substances they are dissolved in water and they are available for the growth of bacteria. So these are the factors that affect the growth of bacteria. So अगर ये आपका food ज़्यादा nutrient concentration होगा, it means growth of bacteria rise हो जाएगी. Temperature, so different bacteria need different temperature. So as per the temperature for the growth of the microorganism जो maximum और minimum temperature होता है. For example हम कहेंगे lactobacillus 10 to 30 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक वो ग्रो हो जाएगा. सो ना वो बिलो 10 डिग्री ग्रो हो जाएगा, ना वो अबो 30 डिग्री सेल्सियस ग्रो हो जाएगा. सो इन बिटवीन अगर ये टेम्परेचर रहा फूड में, वो ग्रो हो जाएंगे. सेम इज द केस विद गैसेस कंसंट्रेशन, पीएच, आयन एंड सॉल्ट कंसंट्रेशन. एंड एज पर द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ द फूड, एज यू नो, जो फूड है जितना वो मॉइस्ट होगा उतना फूड आपका स्पॉइल हो जाता है. So this was all about the food preservation, food processing, and some factors that affect the growth of microorganisms. So thank you so much for today's lecture. Inshallah, tomorrow we start with next topic. Thank you.